Good evening, welcome to Monday night's Fan Zone show here live on Leicester Fan TV. Now tonight is all about us getting as many of your comments on screen as possible. If you do want to click on the link, you can come on and tell me your video views, but we want to get all your views if you're watching this live. We know lots of you put your comments in. I want to get as many of those on screen as possible so that there's a chance for you guys to have your say. So comment your views live. We want to know, is there any chance at all at Chelsea? What do you think? Do you think we could do that at all or not? Any chance? 11 out of 12 defeats. Do we want to be miserable tonight? Or do we want to think there's half a chance? Maybe a third of a chance? I think statistically, the supercomputer is saying 96% chance of relegation. But there's still a chance that we're not going to get relegated. Are you positive at all? Give me some things to think about. Did Ruud change anything away at West Ham, or did he just play the same old, same old? We're still trying to pass it out from the back. Did he change the formation? I didn't notice it at all. There was all that talk that against Brentford, he tried to change the formation. I didn't see that. And again, that leads us on to the big question really tonight is, do you stick or do you twist with Ruud van Nistelrooy? Get your views in, get your comments in. We've got the next 35, 40 minutes to talk all about it in tonight's Fan Zone show. I need your comments.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms.
Want to watch more content like this? Hit the like button. Give us your views. Hit subscribe to Leicester Fan TV and make sure to follow Leicester Fan TV on all socials.
Indeed, welcome to the show as ever. We're live. We want your views. I want to know what you think about Leicester City. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and quite rightly so, because it's not looking good. But is there just a little bit of you still clinging on to some hope? I know I am, but is it all over? I've heard lots of people chatting and saying that's it, it's the Championship. It's not over yet, but it is going to be tough. It doesn't help that the next game is Chelsea away. Then we've got Man United home. Well, Man United home this season actually could be 3 points. We're going to need that. But then you've got Man City away, you've got Newcastle at home, you've got Brighton away and Liverpool at home. Have we got any chance at all? We want to get your views in. Let's get as many on screen as possible tonight. Good evening, Smigster. Good evening, Wayne. Hope you're well. Mark, dreading the game against Chelsea. It's not going to be easy, is it? Richie, always positive, Richie. Get behind Ruud van Nistelrooy, please. Listen, Richie, this is where I'm at. Do you stick or twist with Ruud? I just don't know, because I think if you're going to get rid, we probably should have done it after West Ham, get Sean Dyche in if somebody like that, and just have a go. We're going to make the change. Kind of got to make it, haven't we? What do you reckon, Richie? Would you stick or would you twist? I know you'd stick with Ruud. We've got no chance, says Jane. That's fair enough. I know a lot of fans are like Jane. Mark saying no chance. Leicester City makes us miserable. I just feel a bit like that this season, Mark, that everybody's just miserable. I'm going to try and be positive tonight. Patrick says more chance of knitting fog in there. Mary says, do you know anything about this training ground buster? The players don't look happy, if you ask me, Mary, for the last 3, 4, 5 games. I ask you, Mary, can you believe that Claudio Ranieri got us the Premier League and then within 6 months, 7 months, he got sacked? There's a lot of player power at Leicester City. It's been there for a long time. That's what I'm thinking is there. Wayne says we're all doomed. We're all doomed. I don't think we are yet, but Richie says Leicester fans need to stop being negative. Leicester will beat Chelsea away. I'd love it, Richie. I'd love it. There's nothing on the cards. How many have we lost? Good evening, Matt. Hope you're well. How many have we lost? I'm losing track. Is it 11 out of 12 overall? Good evening, Ivan. Wolves striker going to get a nice ban. Ruud in. Yeah, I believe he's out for a little while, isn't he? So Andy's saying, I'm still wondering if Cooper was ever the problem. Andy, listen, you know, I think I said at the time I felt it wasn't the right time to sack Steve Cooper. But it's done now, isn't it? We've got to let the Steve Cooper one go. I mean, you can debate it if you want, but he was gone. I think you'll find, like I said all along, I said it at the start of the season, I've said since day one, we've got a bottom 6 squad. It actually looks like we've got a bottom 3 squad. Let's hope we can just make it bottom 4 squad. Scooby says, end of the day, we're stuck with him. The club is as rough as a badger's arse upstairs. Big changes needed upstairs. This is what I like. Give me something to smile about tonight. Thank you for that, Scooby. Mark says, Rude out unless he's useless like our players. It does feel like manager's not that great. Players don't seem to care that much. Tony says, is Vestergaard dog in on a Sunday? Maybe his dog could play on the pitch, Tony. I don't know what you think. Jamie says, please, 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 Rude, change the formation. And I couldn't agree with you more, Jamie. Try something different. Again, I don't know about you guys. I didn't go to the West Ham away game. It's on a school night, a work night, long way to go. Didn't make it. But I feel sorry for all the fans who went there because it was pretty dull to see there. Phil Upton says, see, Tom Cannon scored against a game last weekend. Did he? I didn't know that, Phil. Thanks for letting me know. Hope scouts are studying the under-21 sides for left-footed players in there. We've got so many comments coming in. Keep them coming in. Patrick says, February goal of the month will be interesting. Have we scored? We haven't scored one, have we? Is that right, Patrick? Have we literally not scored? I mean, I'm trying to remember now. When was the last goal we did score? When was the last goal we did score? It's been a while, hasn't it? It's certainly been a long time at there. Jane says, got to forget about Cooper now. We've got Rude, got to stick with it. Well, that's the question, Jane. Do you stick with Rude or do you let him go? And if you did let him go, would it be Dice? Just get him in? I don't know. Tony says, Rude couldn't run a bath. Richie says Rude is better than Cooper. Stats aren't backing that up, Richie. Got to be honest. If you look at point per game, Rude's not doing any better at all. Chris says Rude will leave at the end of the season. Can't see him hanging around. Well, at PSV, he left with 1 game to go at the end of the season because he felt he hadn't been backed. And to be fair to you, did we back him in January? I think you'll all agree we didn't back him in January at all in there. Phil says 5-3-2, but where's the wing backs in there? I mean, that's a good point. If you were to change it, I think I would go with a 5 at the back, but it's a 3 at the back with wing backs. That's how I would play it. I'd have 3 centre backs, and then I would have 2 wing backs. Victor Christensen, JJ, maybe Ricardo if he's back soon. Reedy says modern managers don't change systems. Can't see Rude doing it. Problem is the players can't do the work Rude wants them to do in this league. I agree, Reedy. I think if we'd got Enzo, maybe we'd have done a little bit better this season. But I think generally, with the squad we've got, even playing with Enzo, I think we would have ended up in a similar situation in there. Richie says, Leicester City last scored at Spurs. Thank you for that, Richie. Yes, of course. The 2-1 win away there. Just shows you never know. You never know. Does anybody, I mean, put in the comments, does anybody, apart from, I know Richie will think we can win at Chelsea, won't you, Richie? But anybody else watching this, just put in the comments if you actually think we can win. Don't put no if you think we don't, because I think, but is there anybody else apart from Richie who thinks we can actually win there? Mark says, is Richie Rude on a dodgy YouTube account? He's not. Richie's been watching for years. That'd be quite funny though, Mark, if it was there. Michael Leeson says, the lad I work with, that's a Villa fan, reckons we have a chance at getting a win at Chelsea. Emoji. Seem pretty optimistic about it, but I'm not sure we'll even get a draw. Listen, Michael, a draw would be a more than decent result, wouldn't it, this season, the way it's been going. Mary says last goal we scored was when we played QPR in the FA Cup. Again, that was a funny game, that 6-2. Shouldn't have played half the players he played that day, maybe. Should have given them a rest. Just, I don't know. Neil says wingbacks, Koulibaly and Thomas. That's an interesting shout. Only seen a little bit of Luke Thomas. Would you give Luke Thomas a bit more of game time is part of the question. Because to be fair to you, if it's something that Luke Thomas and probably Victor Christensen offer you, it's 100% effort. Sean Dyche, get him in. He can't do any worse than Rude, says Andy. Well, he can't. I mean, Andy, you could probably do better than Ruud van Nistelrooy. I could probably do better. 11 defeats out of 12. Crikey. Anybody could. Richie, is Richie smoking something, says Tony. Don't let into Richie. He's just super positive. That's what it is, Tony. And we need a bit of positivity in there. Reedy says, we have performed better versus top teams, yet no points. Points make prizes, Reedy. points keep you in this league, playing quite well away at Liverpool for 32 minutes and playing quite well against Man City doesn't get you anywhere. Maybe we have more chance, Reedy says, of getting points in the next 6 games than Southampton and Ipswich near the end. Oh dear. I think we've got to hope that those the last 5 games in reverse order, the last 5 is Wolves away. We're going to have to get 3 there. Leicester play at home then against Southampton, then away at Forest. Don't want to even think about that one. And then we've got Ipswich and we've got Bournemouth away. That's where there's potential points, but we've got to stick somewhere near the big teams there. Don't forget, I'm putting a little link in there. If somebody does, my main aim today is get as many comments on as possible. But if you do want to click on and give me your video views, that's fine. But I want to get as many comments on as possible. Craig says Enzo will let us win. Do you think he will? He'll probably play Kiernan Dewsbury Hall against us, won't he? And he'll probably score. Dyche lived in Kettering, but rumours for Rangers, says Phil Upton. I've not heard the Dyche to Rangers. Chris says it's high odds. I'm putting a bet on Leicester to win. It'll be very high odds, Chris. Tell us what the odds are. I'm not sure I'll put a pound on it, but let's know what the odds are. Mark says get Dyche in. He'll sort them spoiled buggers out. There is a lot of fans, Mark, saying exactly what you're thinking there, that there is, it feels like the players are just, we've been saying it for a few years, literally, since we've moved training ground. I'm not saying it's a training ground. I think it's just they've lost that connection with the fans, and that's part of it. Like I know Jamie said on the Fox's Aftermath show the other day, he said when they used to have to drive past up Beaver Drive, it's like terraced housing. You all know where Beaver Drive is, up near Grace Road, down Elston Road. It shows them every day. This is what proper fans. I mean, I've been there. You've probably been. Let me know in the comments if you've been to Beaver Drive as a fan and stood out on the street and tried to get something signed. I know loads of you will have done that back in the day, maybe under the Jock Wallace years, the Martin O'Neill years, you know, even the more recent years when we were at Beaver Drive. Did you ever go there and just stand outside and try to get something signed? Because the players would wind down their windows and stick their hand out and sign something or say a quick hello. And it gave you that connection. You can't do that at Seagrave because it's like just in the middle of nowhere. And it's just scoot out. It's not the same at all. So let me know, did you ever go to Beaver Drive and get something signed? Because you have that little connection. They could see fans standing there and going, oh, look, there's the normal people. This is where normal people live. And I think that has gone now. They live in a cocoon. Andy says, let's get some more of your comments on. Andy says, got to play experience. We've got some tough games coming up. Or do you go for the lads, Andy, the young lads? Do you go for a Jake Evans in there? Luke Thomas. I'd have put Hamza in. I'd have put Tom Cannon in. I really would. Neil says, Maresca is well aware of our weaknesses. Can't see anything other than defeat. I'm trying to be positive, Neil, but I'm afraid I'm with you. I'm struggling to see anything else from a defeat. Chris says, why doesn't he try some real crazy formations? A 3-4-3? I don't know, Chris. If you keep, we've said this week on week, I'm in like absolute repeat zone at the moment because we keep saying, if you keep playing the same formation and roughly playing, because that's what he's doing is he'll play a Bobby Reed or an Ayew and then he won't, then he'll play a Mavididi and a Buenanotte. Effectively, it's the same thing. Again, the subs, when we played Brentford, it was just like for like. Unless I missed it, I didn't see anything revolutionary against West Ham away in the second half. He just keeps doing the same stuff. Andy says, what about McAteer as a wing back? Yeah, Andy, it's a shout because we're at the point now where you've got to try some of these things. You've got to absolutely try something different to get them in there. Wayne says 2 up top needed. Attack. It's one of my least favourite chants, Wayne, but I know what you mean. The attack. It feels like that, the enemy approaching. Neil says, has helped a little in Chwana getting sent off yesterday for Wolves, earning a 3-match ban. Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. And Wolves, how are we still vaguely in a relegation race after all this? I don't know. Andy's saying maybe playing Stolicic in goal. Again, Mads has come back from that injury. I think they've rushed him back, if you ask me. And I don't quite see he's come back the same player at all. I don't know about you guys. Stolicic, Again, we won away at Spurs and then he got dropped, which is always strange. So maybe change things. Reedy says 12-1. I think he means 12-1 Leicester to win at Chelsea. I don't think that's worth a quid or two, is it? At 12-1, I really won't fancy us. Brian says it's take your dog to work at Seagrave. Well, it's just nice of them to turn up for work every now and then, I guess, isn't it? Reedy says they don't wind the windows now, just a button. I know I'm living the old world. Wind the windows down. I know, Reedy, you probably don't even know what I mean by winding the windows down. Like the players make everything easy for themselves. Rene just says, Enzo, I miss you as a manager. Come back. I don't think Enzo could have done much with this lot, honestly, at all, Rene. But maybe he could. Brian says, I work around the corner from Beaver Drive. They used to run to the football ground from there. Nick says, I don't think experience has worked so far. Look at the comments about DeCorva Reed, IU et al. In there. Andy says he's been to Beaver Drive as it was on my council route and seen Walshy training. Yeah, you could see them. They could see you. It was all a little bit closer, wasn't it? Phil says now make Pereira captain if he's fit. Vardy is in the wrong place to organise the team. I think, listen, we all I love Jamie Vardy. For me, he's the greatest ever Leicester City player. We could have a big debate about that, but I don't think there is much of a debate. He is the best ever Leicester City player. But honestly, if Daka was missing these chances and if Daka hadn't scored in all these games, I know I'd be saying you've got to change him. You've got to put somebody else in. And I think the same for Vardy. He puts in some effort and he runs around, but it's just not working. And you've got to change something. Like A1 Hardy says it, it's just too predictable. Opposition can read us like a book. Definitely need to change formation in there. I agree with you. It is so predictable. And I've got to be fair, I hate to say it, the worst thing for me is it's so boring. I mean, crikey, I found it quite boring under Enzo, but we were winning, so you take it. But this year, it's like there's just a lack of everything in there. Phil Upton says, now fit. Well, just done that one. That's my fault for putting the same one on there. Keep getting it in there. Richie keeps coming back with his positivity. Leicester will beat Chelsea away 12-1. Good luck with that, Richie. Martin says, Luke Thomas and Monga should have had a run. Can't do any worse than the crap we've got at the back now. I agree, Martin. You've got to change something. You've got to change the formation, change some of the players are in there. Richie says he went to Beaver Drive once. Yeah, good. I think we've all been there. I don't think any manager can do anything with this bunch. People have been saying Pep can't do anything with this lot. Pep's struggling to do anything with Man City. They only just beat Plymouth. They're not. Man City, if your players aren't, this is what I'm saying, this passing football, retain the ball. It's great. If out the two teams on the pitch, you've got the better players, you can do it. But that's just football. But it's like everybody's been absolutely brainwashed into Pep-style football, that it's the only way to play. I come back to last season. I said it at the time. Swansea came to the King Power Stadium, and they're in the bottom 5 of the Championship. And they were playing passing football, and we scored 1, then we scored 2. And I'm like, why are they still passing the ball? We got 3, I think we won 4-1. And I was like, what are Swansea doing playing possession-based football, trying to pass it out against us? It was just stupidity. I think that's Chris from Leicester Till I Die. Hi, Chris. Sorry I'm late. Win. Can I have a pint of what you're drinking? Hope you're well, Chris. Good to get you on for a chat soon. Yeah, I'll have a pint of that. Pint of cider, knowing you, Chris. Brian says, Vardy's okay, but he needs help up front. What would you do, Brian? Would you go 2 up top? I mean, how bad can Edouard be? Because, again, I'd kind of go old school. I'd like to see Edouard and Vardy together. Can any statos tell me, has Vardy and Edouard actually played any minutes at all? I mean, Edouard's only played 26 Premier League minutes this season. So were any of those minutes actually with Jamie Vardy? Because, again, try something different. And I'm kind of at the point where if Edouard isn't even in the matchday squad, somebody from the club needs to come out and tell the fans what's going on, because he just can't be that bad. I've never known a player just disappear like this and not be around. We can't lose 11 out of 12 games and have a striker that we're paying reportedly 90 grand a week for and not have him there as an option when we haven't scored in 6 home games. Can we? Surely he's got to go. I'll give it a go in there. Mark says Enzo won't let us win. They're fighting for Champions League. Yeah, he might. I agree. Phil saying Edouard must be fed up sitting in the hot tub, I think you mean, Phil, all season. Well, if you want to pay, Phil, how about if I paid you 90 grand a week, would you sit in a hot tub all week? I mean, you could take Yannick Vestergaard's dog for a walk. I'd do that for 90 grand a week. I don't mind. Let me know in there. Mark says he disagrees that a manager like Dyche could do any better with our lot than Rude. I think he'd give them a massive kick up the backside, Mark. That's what I'd want. I'd want Sean Dyche to come in and go, that is it. We are not. You are going to toe the line for the next 11 games. They'd hate it. But he'd say, right, this is what we're doing. We're going to play it like this and we're going to do it. But I don't know. Mary says 4-4-2 in there. Yes, well, maybe old school. Maybe in there. We shouldn't be relying on a third. Yeah, again, Andy, we said this at the start of the season. Love Jamie Vardy, but having a 38-year-old striker who's not scoring, and then again, what he brings Daka on against Brentford with a few minutes to go or something. It's just crazy. Tony says Edouard is a club dog walker. Probably is. Rene wants Fatou back. It's not happening. I think he is well and truly out till the end of the season, and it's such a big injury. It's a tough one to come back from that regardless. Wayne says in there, I think our biggest problem playing people out of position and not changing the team to our strength. We've said this before. We said it under Claude Puel. We said it under Brendan Rodgers. We said it under Enzo. Square pegs in round holes, Wayne. The managers, like Reedy said, managers have a way. They want to play this way. And if they can't, if they haven't got the players to play it, they still play it. And sometimes I don't know, maybe we're old school and we go, you got to look at the players you got and you got to go, right, that's the players we got and that's their strength. So I'm going to mold the team and the formation to play around it in there. Witchy says, don't want Dyche as manager. Well, let's put that in there. Let's put in the comments now, do you stick or do you twist? And I can only assume if you twist, it's Sean Dyche. I've got no other names out there. Because the only other people you could say is people like Dean Smith. I don't even know. I think Dean Smith's managing in America now. But it is that sort of like, if you say twist, I can just think it literally is for, I mean, you can almost forget Chelsea now because nobody's going to come in time. But there's a little gap, isn't there? We play Chelsea on Sunday on the 9th of March, and then we've got another week until we play Man United. So if you say twist, it's got to be for like just literally somebody like Dyche to come in and shout, be like almost bully them, berate them, scream at them. Because again, I'm not laying to Rude, but I literally Rude against West Ham was just stood there like this with his hands in his pockets. Look, this was just Rude, just hands in his pockets and like, you know. That was it, just watching it. I felt sorry for the guy on the touchline. I really did feel sorry for him, but he didn't do anything. I didn't see him really gesticulating or going. He looked beaten, absolutely beaten. So I want to know your views on that. A1 Hardy says, play 2 up front. Vardy looks isolated at times. He looks isolated in the whole game, mate, absolutely all the time. Chris says, go with Dyche. He can majorly improve the defence. Well, he couldn't make it much worse in there. Chris at Leicester Till I Die says Steve Gerrard is available, only joking. Yeah, again, you can't go for anybody like that. Or I mean, Wayne Rooney is available. You need somebody who's just going to come in and literally go, this is a 10-game season now. How many? Because you've got to think 10 games, however unbelievable it is if you were to win 6 of the 10, I know there's 11 left, I think, but you would stay up. Neil Lennon, Gary Parker assistant, says Phil Upton. I don't know what Neil Lennon's doing, Phil, at the moment. Last time I heard, he was out in, I think, Turkey. He's moved around a bit. Since his Celtic days, he has moved around a bit. I don't know. I don't know if that would work for these players, because you and me, Phil, I'll put it back on. You and me would go, yeah, I respect those two players. I don't think these players would even know who those two are. I don't think they'd have the culture to realise what they'd done to for the club. Neil says, yeah, Dyche, improver manager, would install discipline and been there, done it, getting teams promoted from the Championship. Again, if you brought Dyche in and you got relegated, you would say, I think he's got 3 Championship promotions under his belt. I think he's done Burnley twice, and I think he did. Oh, he managed another team. Somebody help me. So one of you lot will know. Sean Dyche did Burnley, but he'd done one before that as well. I'm going to say it's somebody like Swansea. I don't think it was Swansea. Who else did Sean Dyche manage from the Championship? One of you lot will get it. I know you will. Sean Dyche with 11 games would not save Leicester. We need a magician in. Well, Ian, so does that mean you're sticking with Rude? Let me know if you would in there. Let me know if you would stick with him. Chris says get Roy Keane in for the last few games. That'd be funny. Watford. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, Andy. It was Watford. I said Swansea. I knew it was somebody. So he did Watford, and then he did, but I think he's got Burnley promoted twice, didn't he? Yeah. So he's got 3 teams promoted. So Sean Dyche has got a better Championship pedigree than Ruud van Nistelrooy. So it kind of is you'd argue it's a win-win. Give him a spin at the last 11. Chris says, why don't we offer our managers a 1-year rolling contract so costs less to pay off? Do you know what, Chris? You and probably everybody else watching this, that is very, very sensible. Do you think that's what the club's done with Cooper and with Ruud van Nistelrooy? Or do you think they've offered them big, fat 3-year contracts? I don't know. It kind of makes you think. But you're very sensible there. Martin says, Top says he sacked Cooper to keep us in the Premier, so he needs to do it again. I mean, can you remember another season where we've sacked we had 3 managers in a season? 3, because Cooper was an official manager. Ruud's an official manager. If we were to get rid of him and get, say, Dyche in, that'd be 3 real managers within 1 season. Have we ever done that before? Because I can't remember 3 in a season. Obviously, I can remember 2, but can you remember 3? Have we ever done 3 managers in a season? 3 proper managers? Let me know in there. Clibo, good evening, Clibo. We don't have the funds to sack Ruud. That's a fact. Well, I disagree with you, because we sold Tom Cannon for 10 million. So if that has to go to pay Ruud off and try and keep us in, maybe that's what we should do, Clibo. So we sold him and we've got money. Rene says Leicester are not planning to sack Ruud just yet, maybe in the Championship. I think you're right. I think we are keeping Ruud, and I think the plan is we'll have him there for this season and the rest of next season. Chris says 2007, 2008, we have 4 managers. This is like a quiz question. What 4 managers did we have in that year? Is that the Megson year, Chris? Let me know. Was that Megson? Was it Martin Allen? Is it that season? Let me. Somebody. So come on. This is like the way to sort of finish with a bit of a quizzy question. We've got another few minutes going on. We're going to go a bit longer tonight. So answer that. Who were those 4 managers? Were they 4 official managers, Chris, or were they interims? That's the interesting one. Ian says no point keep sacking managers. No cash for compensation. Well, I don't know, Ian. Maybe you just keep going with Ruud and see where it is. Wayne says can't remember 2. Well, Chris is saying there was 4. I'm taking Chris's word for it. Let me know in there. Clibo says though the £10 million from Tom Cannon have gone to PSR. But listen, Forest bust PSR and then stayed up and then got the points the following season if we bust PSR this season, which we should have done, if you ask me, in the January transfer window, we should have just bought some players. We could see we were rubbish. We should have bought some players, gone, well, if we get fined, we get fined. But it's going to be next season. Because then, do you know what? If we'd have stayed up this season, do you know who's coming up? It's like Leeds and it's Burnley and Sunderland again. and we'd probably have been better than them. Those three would probably be the hot favourites to go down. So if we'd have just bust the PSR and stayed up, we'd have, like Forest did. Look at Forest, that's what they did. That's what Everton did. They bust it, but made sure they stayed up. Everton busted it the season we went down, but they spent a bit more and they stayed up. I think they've got more sense to do it that way. Wayne says, is that season, was it Megson and Allen? That's the two I thought it was, but I'm trying to remember the others in there. James says it's Martin, Allen, Megs. Well, that's 3, James. That's not 4. So is this the same season? I remember, obviously, Ian Holloway, we had 2008, 2009, took us down to League One. Just remember, it has been worse than it is now. Who was that in there? Chris says, I think Burrows was an interim with Taggart as his assistant. Any votes for Jerry Taggart to get into the changing rooms and take them on? Get rid of Rude, Jerry Taggart, get in there. He wouldn't take none of this nonsense, would he? He'd be straight in there. Taggart and Walshy. That'd be my shout. Bit of Muzzy in there on the side. Heck, that'd sort them out in there. But was it the season where Martin Allen, Gary Megson and Ian Holloway, says Chris in there? I don't know. There seems a lot in there. Yeah, Patrick is saying, as so does Wayne, Paolo Sousa. I remember all that. But he got sacked after 7 games for Sven to come in, didn't he? And all that in there. James is saying in that season, maybe James has checked this out. In that season, there was 3. I'm struggling to remember us having more than 3 official managers in a season. But I'm not sure. It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Keep those comments coming in and let us know what you think. Chris, I'm not talking any sense, Chris. You know that's not what we do on here. As much as you don't talk much sense either, Chris. We just talk it with passion and what would be good. Brian says maybe get Nigel Pearson in. Maybe he'd be good. We've covered a lot of topics tonight. Chelsea away at any chance. I'm not sure any of us think that there is any much of a chance that we'll get it. 12-1 it is, apparently. Apart from Richie Collins, I've not seen anybody else say we can win at Chelsea. I'd find a draw away to be an absolute miracle in there. I think the stick or twist debate we've been having has been pretty even, if I'm honest. We put a poll out everybody's very negative after a defeat at West Ham. And of course, we did do it on Twitter where everybody's really negative. But I think it was something like 47% said we should sack Rude, 35% said Rude should walk, and I think it was only about 16% said stick with Rude. But I think generally tonight, the comments have been a little bit more, maybe we should stick with Rude and just go with it, or a bit. I think it's a bit 50-50 in there. But I think the debate on changing the formation, I think virtually does anybody not think we should change the formation? Put that in the comments. Let me know if anybody thinks we shouldn't change the formation. And the thing that's really grinding on me at the moment is stop passing it out. We can't do it. We're just not good enough. Sometimes, if you crap at something, you have to walk away. Like me in golf, honestly, I am rubbish at golf. The last time I played golf, I have people say, come and play golf, come and play golf. Get your clubs out the shed. I got the clubs out. I'm rubbish at golf, and I hate it because I'm rubbish at it. I wish I was good at it. I got to the 15th green and I was fuming that I was that bad. And then the 16th, the tee was right near the clubhouse. This is down at Beadles in East Goscott. I was playing down there. I think it's the 16th. I could see I was in touching distance of the clubhouse, and I went, I've had enough. I just can't do it. I haven't played golf in about 4 or 5 years because I can't do it. It's the same with Leicester with passing. Just stop it. You can't do it. I'm sorry, lads. You can't do it. You're not good enough. So do something else in there. Let me know your views and your comments in there. Chris has confirmed 2007 and 8 was only 3 full-time managers. That'd be, that's what I thought. I think that's good. James says we can't win at Anstey Nomads. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind if you pulled 1 or 2 of the players from Anstey Nomads or Loughborough Dynamo or Fries Lane, the Old Boys or Holwell, one of these. There'd be 1 or 2 gems out there. You think I'd rather see them pull a Leicester shirt on than some of the lads at the moment in there. Andy says get Sean Dyche and Andy King in there. It's an interesting one. I don't know. Renee says, I'm sorry, Phil, I don't trust him. Rude anymore. I'm kind of with you. I want him to do well. I want him to win, but it just doesn't seem to be happening. James says, yes, please change the bloody formation. He's getting cross, James is, but I believe that in there. Richie says he used to be good at table tennis and won medals. Well, Richie, that's no good. If you were used to be good at it, are you any good now? If you're no good at it, you need to either practice or stop it. Mary says, yes, and he needs to stop changing it last minute. In there talking about the change. Yeah, there was all this chat, wasn't there, Mary? That apparently he changed the formation, went 4-3-3 against Brentford. Did anybody else notice that we played 4-3-3? I certainly didn't notice that. It wasn't 4-3-3. It was the same old. Honestly, it was in there. Chris says, maybe can we sneak a couple of the women's team into the men's side? Maybe. I don't know. Could it be any worse? Definitely change the system, says Andy in there. Brian says should go to Treetop Golf. Hey, do you know what, Brian? I do love a bit of Treetop Golf. I do love a bit of crazy golf. I am much better at that. Does anybody else, by the way, take crazy golf just a lot too serious? I know I certainly do. That's my forte. There's some skill in that. Don't be knocking that, Brian. Don't you be saying that's not real golf. Treetop Golf certainly is. Michael says, go back to 4-4-2, start playing on the counter-attack and start putting balls into the box. Who was it? Dave Bassett at Wimbledon used to say, the more time, I think it was either Dave Bassett or it was Brian Clough. I think it was Dave Bassett at Wimbledon. Said the more times you put the ball into the penalty box, the more chances you've got of scoring. Because the more chances of it hitting somebody, bouncing off somebody, a second ball, a third ball, whatever. Why haven't we got anybody who practices long throws? Why are we still taking short corners? How many short corners do we need to have before we decide to put it into the box? I don't know, Michael. Listen, Ben Jacobs has clicked in and I'm going to let him get in. Thank you, Ben, for joining. How are you, Ben? Can you hear me all right? Ben, you seem to be on mute. I'm not sure why. Can you just check your settings while we get some comments in? Let me know what's going on. Ian says Nigel Worthington, Martin Allen, Gary Megson, Ian Holloway were managed in 2007. You mean there, Ian? Ben, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think we're all good now. How you doing?
There we go. I was just filling time to get you on. So thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. Ben, listen, tonight we've already been talking for the last half hour with comments from fans. There's so much at Leicester to talk about. If we focus just on the trip to Chelsea away on Sunday, I think most fans tonight have said we really haven't got a cat in hell's chance to get a win, and a draw would be lucky. What's your take even on the next few games, the Chelsea, Man United, Man City? It's tough.
Yeah, it's about the hardest 6 fixtures that I think you can get: away at Chelsea, home to Manchester United, away at Man City, home to Newcastle, away at Brighton, and then home to Liverpool. And usually if this was earlier in the season, you'd refer to some of them maybe as a bit of a free hit. And if they had a bit of a new manager bounce, as they did for about 2 weeks, or if they weren't where they were in the table, you'd be relatively relaxed about some of these games. But the cold, hard reality is that you can't look at these matches with underdog syndrome. You can't go to park the bus. You can't play the odds and try and get a point here and there. Otherwise, by the time the real key part of the season comes, away at Wolves, home to Southampton, Derby away at Forest, home to Ipswich, and then away at Bournemouth on the final game of the season, they'll be too far cut off. And if they have the wrong mentality for these next 6, then they simply won't be in touching distance. So Chelsea is an opportunity, because this isn't the Chelsea of old. This is an inconsistent team. They'll have played on a Thursday away in Copenhagen. I'm flying over to cover that game. Leicester will have had more prep time. They've got to go there and be positive, knowing that Chelsea concede goals, and try and get a win, not just a draw, not just park the bus. Otherwise, the reality is these fixtures fall in such a cruel way that it's all very well saying late April from Wolves onwards, they've got a run of fixtures where they're playing all the teams around them. But if you're more than, let's say, 6 points adrift by that point, then unfortunately they'll already be in the Championship, whether that's mathematical or not.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, Ben. I think that if we could get to the last 5 or 6 games and be somewhere close, and then put on a run that none of us see, there's still a slim chance that it can happen. Looking at what Ruud's been doing for Leicester, Ben, he seems, and we've chatted about this earlier with fans, he seems like a lot of managers nowadays who seem quite fixated with a style and a formation and reluctant to try and change something. And yet many fans like us look at what he's doing and think, if it's not working, you've got to try and do something different. But he does feel like a modern day manager who's got a style and is going to stick to it, whatever.
Yeah, I think part of that's inexperience as well, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. But of course, he's never been in this position. He doesn't have the managerial credentials on his CV to be able to say, okay, with this group of players, he hasn't been backed in the market. What can you do? So the challenge, I think, is it's all very well saying what Leicester need, but then what are they actually capable of with the squad at the disposal? And I think that teams find playing Leicester at the moment very predictable. They know they're going to do the bulk of their damage on the counter-attack. They know they're going to try and build at times from the back, which has proven to be risky. There's not enough tenacity in the centre of the park, which surprises me because a player like Ndidi, for example, should be giving you that. We haven't yet seen the connection between the three that play behind Jamie Vardy, and that was apparent in the 2-0 loss at West Ham. And there's no sort of fear factor with Leicester City at home, which was always the sort of hallmark behind the great escape into the season when they won the Premier League. And even though I think 1 or 2 signings have added the kind of personality and the desire needed in the front third, and De Cordova-Reid is a good example of that, they're either too old or they're not consistent enough. And then at the other extreme, you've maybe got younger players like Buonanotte, and they know they're not going to be at Leicester forever. So you have a situation where there's no unity. And when you go from Enzo Maresca, where there was a very defined style, it was relatively rigid in philosophy, it wasn't always endorsed by every Leicester fan, but he ultimately got the team promoted as champions. So then from there, like that style or loathe that style, my take is it needed continuity. So you had to bring in somebody after Maresca that would build upon what he had instead of departing from it. And unfortunately, the style of Steve Cooper and the feel-good factor around that appointment was nowhere near the momentum and the buzz that was built by Enzo Maresca taking Leicester up. And that wasn't just in the fan base or the philosophy, it was also in the dressing room as well. And as a consequence, they've been through too many managers, too many styles, and now Ruud van Nistelrooy, I'm torn. Because on the one hand, I think we all saw this coming as fans. So you don't want to be overly critical against an inexperienced manager when maybe actually those that are culpable come above the manager at the football club. But on the other hand, you start asking the question now, is he going to stand a chance of keeping Leicester up? Or is there an argument to make another change now for someone that's maybe more of a specialist in getting Leicester out of trouble? And I know it sounds left field, and I'm only putting this out there as one possibility. I'm by no means saying that it's the solution or that I think it would happen. But right now, if I was only speaking as a fan and I was offered a choice between bring back Nigel Pearson for the last few games of the season versus stick with Ruud van Nistelrooy, and which one of those two options do I think has a better chance of Leicester staying up? I would say Pearson all day long at the moment.
Well, Ben, that's really interesting because before you came on, we were talking about this stick or twist with Ruud. Do you stick with him and go, well, he's probably going to take us down, but maybe he'd be a good guy to bring us back next season with some cultured football like Enzo did in the Championship, and we'll still have the nucleus of a quality side that could, I don't think it'll be easy, but could certainly be in that top 6 in the Championship? Or do you twist? And the person we were twisting with was Sean Dyche. Only in the fact that he is available, he's very alternative, he's gruff ready, he wouldn't take any prisoners in the changing room, and he would come in and just sort of go, right, this is how we're going to do it. And again, he would be the reverse of what Enzo almost and Ruud sort of try and do to a level. And you almost think, well, if we twisted with that, could it be any worse? And even if he didn't keep us up, Sean Dyche has had 3 championship promotions in his career, so he'd be all right in the championship. So we've kind of been talking about the stick or twist before you came on, but we were talking about Sean Dyche.
Yeah, I mean, Pearson's just a sort of hypothetical to give an extreme scenario. I don't think there's any realistic possibility of that happening. Dyche, like you say, is a free agent, but it's an interesting one because people are judging Ruud and Leicester now, but you drop down and you're suddenly in a situation where you are more dominant. You can have more of the ball. There's several players in this squad that have already come up through the championship with Enzo Maresca. So Southampton will find this as well. You can very easily find some form in the championship, but what you don't want is to be a yo-yo club, because that's what Leicester were in the Martin O'Neill kind of era. And before it, if we talk about managers like Brian Little, anything really in the early 90s up to when they established themselves as more a mid-table or top half team and won a couple of League Cups. In that sort of 10 years or so, they were up, down all of the time. And I think the hope was, even though I don't think many Leicester fans feel it should have always been challenging for top 4, it should have always been a quarter-final of the Champions League or a miraculous Premier League. But I think most people felt like that whole era from the Great Escape, fairy tale, win the Premier League, 6-7 years on, there was a feeling that maybe Leicester could do what Brighton appear to be doing now and always be your default stay up. And if they have a good season, they push for European football. And now it feels like there's a danger Leicester could be more of a yo-yo club. And if we go down, you have to also consider, will the EFL go for any kind of points deduction? So there's a manner of uncertainty about going down that isn't only within the playing squad, but also the financial side and potentially the very long-term future of the club as being a consistent member of the Premier League. And that's why it's so important that they find a way by hook or by crook to just stay up. And that will make such a difference, I think. In terms of sticking with Ruud, I think if Leicester go down, there is a very realistic possibility that he goes and they find more of a championship specialist, whether that's Sean Dyche, somebody even like Russell Martin might come into the fray as well, who took Southampton up and played a very attractive style of football. But whatever manager you have, it doesn't mean anything if the club are not able to support that manager in the market. And that's the only sort of mitigating side with Ruud van Nistelrooy around why you just stick with him. Because he may be turning around to the board and saying, this is why we're not getting results, because we need X, Y, and Z in the market. We need support for Jamie Vardy. We need a playmaker behind, like a Kiernan Dewsbury Hall type figure. We definitely need another centre-back. We might need full-back cover as well. Buonanotte, like I say, not staying at the football club. So suddenly saying, can Casey McAteer or somebody else step forwards? Or alternatively, do you have the ability to go in the market and find a wide player? Got to get the best out of Steffi Mavididi, who was excellent in the Championship, but isn't even starting every game in the Premier League. So that support in the market, if it doesn't come during the summer, will still put Leicester in a difficult position, which means any manager coming in may feel at a disadvantage. And we might find, therefore, that sticking with Ruud was the better option. My gut says if they go down, Ruud won't stay. So therefore, they will be succession planning to try and find other options, because I just think it's gone so terribly of late under Ruud van Nistelrooy that if it continues and they go down with a whimper, it'll be very difficult to see him staying.
Ben, should we have done what Forest and Everton did 2 years ago, the year we did go down, where they bust PSR and overspent, probably on purpose, to get players in that kept them both in that league that season, and then took the fine the following year when they were stronger and 3 weaker teams had come back up last year who got relegated straight away? Did Leicester miss an opportunity this January where we should have just knowingly bought a couple of players and said, we'll take the fine, but it'll be next year when Leeds and Sunderland and whoever have come up, and we'll be stronger than them. We'll take the gamble.
I mean, it sounds neat on paper, doesn't it? But my experience of January is, 1, it's a seller's market, and 2, do those players that are of the quality that you allude to want to come to Leicester City in this kind of environment, knowing going down to the EFL might be a points deduction, knowing that they may join in the Premier League and be playing in the Championship the following season. It's not just about can you get the player, it's can you afford the wages and all these other things. And right now, it's not only a case of the club not wanting to spend money or knowing who the right targets are, it's whether or not they can get them. And this comes back to that bigger point again of right now, everyone correctly is saying, what can we do in the short term to just keep this club up at whatever costs? But in the long run, it's that same debate that we've pretty much had since the last 18 months of Brendan Rodgers, where those at the senior executive level of the club, without pointing individual fingers, have not been decisive enough or unified enough. Whether that is John Rutkin and recruitment, whether that was getting rid of Brendan Rodgers a year earlier than they actually did, whether that's finding a succession plan for Jamie Vardy, whether that's allowing Kiernan Dewsbury Hall to be sold instead of playing on the fact that it was a difficult decision and maybe he wanted to stay at his boyhood club, whether that's finding academy players to come through that ultimately reflect very positively on the books. It's not one thing. And I think that's the most concerning thing for me. Again, if I take off my journalistic hat and I think about it as a fan, the manner in which Leicester are struggling now is not only about Ruud and form and games. It's about that bigger picture that's led to all of this. It's about having Jesse Marsh at Seagrave about to sign, and then he got a call from US Soccer and he didn't, and then scrambling, and then trying to get Graham Potter. And it probably wasn't Leicester's fault that they didn't get him, but thinking, okay, maybe he'll sign, and he didn't. And then bringing in Enzo Maresca, and then finding that Enzo Maresca goes to Chelsea, and then going back to Graham Potter, and then going to Steve Cooper, then going to Ruud van Nistelrooy. And when I add up those managers, let alone the players, I don't see a plan. Because if you'd have said to me, Enzo Maresca, and then straight after him, we're going for Carlos Corberán, who was discussed, but they didn't want to pay 3 million, which isn't a lot in the bigger picture of compensation. And then they went for the string of other names I mentioned. But if you said that, I say, I understand it. Why? Because they play the same system. They've got the same philosophy. They're both ball playing managers. They're both about 60% possession. They're both about goalkeepers going short. They're both about centre backs that are confident on the ball. Wide players are important. And also number 8s have to have the output of number 10s, which again is what Leicester need, because Jamie Vardy's not going to single-handedly score the goals to keep Leicester up. But every time people point the fingers now about Leicester, Van Nistelrooy, the Brentford loss, the West Ham loss, I can't help thinking, where's the overarching club leadership and strategy? Because if that was in place, we wouldn't even be at this point now. And that's the bigger worry for me, because if you don't have that, the same philosophy towards recruitment, how are Leicester going to play? What is the identity of the club? What is the formation? Does the academy reflect that? Is there synergy? Does everyone understand their pathways? Are youth being given opportunities? If you have that connection and that identity and that style, whether you stay up or go down, you're always going to be able to bounce back under any manager. And whatever manager comes in, they have to bend towards that structure and that identity and that formation and that recruitment model. But if you don't have that, then every single manager like Ruud's going to come in, stamp their own authority. If it doesn't work, they'll leave. You're back where you started. And that's my fear for Leicester. And if 3, 4, 5 times in a cycle, through 3, 4 managers, you constantly have this rebuilding, this revamping of identity, of culture, of style, then eventually you run out of money. And every new manager that comes in has less and less and less support because you're handcuffed. And that's where it feels like Leicester are now, which is why I've got some sympathy for Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Everybody's commenting that you know your stuff really well, Ben. Alex says the board should hire Ben. Clivo says sign Ben up. Phil Upton says director of football responsibility. He's saying get Ben in there. Ben for director of football. I'm going to let this be the last question to you. And it's been great having you on, Ben. And just before I ask you the question, just let us know where everybody can follow your work professionally and where you are on social media.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So TalkSport commentator, and you can find me there from the TalkSport website or online. and Gimme Sport as well for much of my writing, bits and bobs here for Sky and other places, and at Jacobs Ben via X as well. And I always enjoy talking about the Blue Army.
Well, it's been great having you on, but Ben, hope this isn't too tricky a question for you. It's from Ivan. He says, what do you think will happen with the boardroom in the summer? Do you think there will be changes?
Yeah, I think there has to be. And first of all, we should say it is the same people in John Rutkin, Sue Whelan, Top, that were part of the greatest moment of our football lives. And we mustn't forget that. So unfortunately, you find in football that people react to the moment and can at times forget that bigger picture and the wonderful memories we've got. But of course, there's also a younger generation that don't remember the Premier League win, that are thinking about Leicester now, and there's future-proofing your club. And as time passes, the last thing you want is to become a Bradford, a Swindon, an Oldham Athletic, clubs that had their heyday, were in the top flight, and then had a huge fall from grace. So at some point, you have to be cutthroat. And I think Leicester's success and Leicester's positive is its family nature, is its relationship with the community, is the relationship on a personal level between Top, John Rutkin, Sue Whelan. And of course, they became tighter through tragedy as well. And we mustn't forget that. And a lot of the bond, a lot of the strategy, a lot of the hard work, a lot of the success, a lot of the tight-knit group, it is born out of this hands-on ownership that understand what Leicester is. Despite the fact that they came in from Thailand, the ownership group, they've always been in tune with the fan base, and they've always been very able, I think, historically anyway, to kind of read the room. But when you're that tight as individuals on a personal level, and you've been through so much as this ownership have done, you can sometimes lose sight of the reality now. And that's where I think we're at, where the executive team at Leicester are so close and have worked together for so long that they perhaps don't realise where the true problems lie. And those problems are much bigger than just Ruud van Nistelrooy. They lie in the fact that, as I've said before, they didn't get rid of Brendan Rodgers early enough. They lie in the fact that the manner in which Wesley Fofana was sold was not ideal, and he was allowed to drive his way out of the football club, and for under 70 million. They lie in the fact that there's been no succession planning for key Leicester players historically. They lie in the fact that Leicester have got this incredible academy and this incredible training centre, but not enough talent is coming through it and getting first team opportunities as maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago. They lie in the fact that Leicester have spent a lot of time and energy in building infrastructure, and unfortunately, it's tied their hands in terms of addressing the now. And right now, the only thing that matters is the now. So I think come summer, number one, there will be more than just a change at football level. Something has got to give on the recruitment side, and something has got to give on the hierarchy and how that connects with the football department. And then from there, the rest will obviously just depend on, do Leicester stay up? How much money do they have as a consequence of staying up? Or do Leicester go down? And then are they going to inherit more legal problems and a potential points deduction? So that's my kind of fear in all of this, that going down doesn't just feel about relegation and being favourites to bounce up. Going down feels like it's an overhaul fraught with legal complications, fraught with financial difficulties. And I'm not so sure if Leicester went down that they would be the favourites to come back up as they were under Enzo Maresca. So it has to be about staying up by hook or by crook. It has to be about being positive for these next 6 games. And then if they stay up, it has to be about not resting on the laurels, because Leicester staying up isn't a pat on the back for the executive team at the football club. It's not an endorsement of John Rutkin. It's not an endorsement of the last 2 windows this season, summer and January. And that's what I think there has to be a realization. If Leicester stay up, it will be by the skin of their teeth, and it will be a massive sigh of relief. But then they have to learn from that to make sure they're not in this position again. I think the only way you can learn from that is by revamping the recruitment side of things. And if they do that, then they stand a chance of sustaining this model. If they don't do that, they'll keep making the same mistakes over and over again, whether they stay up or whether they go down.
Thanks, Ben. I don't know if you can hear me. I've had some technical issues my end with my laptop crashing, but it's been absolutely brilliant to have you in. So thank you.
I was asked, by the way, why I've got a Man United
Thank you so much, Ben.
I was asked, by the way, why I've got a Man United shirt behind me, and also why it's gone pitch black dark. It's because I'm live in our TalkSport offices at the moment. So the shirts behind me are not my shirts. They're just whatever the TalkSport office has hanging up. My own shirts have got the old Walker's Crisps kits from the sort of Martin O'Neill era. But unfortunately, I'm in the office rather than at home. So that's why there's a Man U shirt behind me.
Well, that explains it all. Ben, listen, thanks so much for joining us. You've spoke so much sense. It's been great. Hopefully we can get you on again in the future. Don't forget, everybody, if you're watching tonight, do listen to Ben. Follow him on his socials as well. So thanks, Ben, so much for joining us.
All the best, everyone, and up the Foxes.
Thanks, mate. That's been great. Cheers.
Cheers.
So we'll let Ben go there. Thanks so much to Ben. Sorry, I had tech issues there. My laptop literally died just as Ben was chatting, but it's been great to get him on. Thanks, everybody, for all your views and comments and everything that everybody's said tonight. Don't forget, you can join us later this week. On Thursday, we've got Foxes Talk with Simon and Jono at 7:30. The lads at Friday lunch will be doing a tactics talk. And of course, on Sunday, there'll be an aftermath show, which will be a pre-match for the Chelsea show. So make sure you follow us and join the debate. Thanks, everybody, for all your views and all your comments. See you at the game.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Foxes Arms.
Want to watch more content like this? Hit the like button. Give us your views. Hit subscribe to Leicester Fan TV and make sure to follow Leicester Fan TV on all socials.